India's IT industry is worth over $250 billion today. It exports software to more than 190 countries, powers US banks, global airlines, telecoms, and employs over 5 million people. Every time you book a flight, transfer money, or use a banking app, there's a good chance the backend is running on code written by Infosys. Today, Infosys is one of the world's biggest IT services firms. But in 1981, it started with 7 engineers, $250 borrowed from one of their wives, and no access to modern infrastructure. They had to work around India's restrictive import rules. They couldn't easily buy computers and couldn't send files online. Their first project for a US client had to be flown back on a floppy disk. That disk didn't work and was damaged by fungus, but they kept going. Over time, Infosys figured out how to deliver projects remotely from India. They trained thousands of engineers, built trust with Fortune 500 companies, and helped formalize the model we now call offshore outsourcing. This approach of building software in India and delivering it to clients abroad became the blueprint for an entire industry. This episode breaks down how Infosys helped kickstart that shift and why most of the world missed it, what they did differently, and how they turned India into a global tech hub at a time when no one thought it was possible. Infosys started with 7 engineers in Pune in India, led by Narayana Murthy. He was known for his discipline, ethics, and deep belief in meritocracy. In 1981, Narayana borrowed $250 from his wife to launch Infosys. They had no office, no computer, and no internet. Their first project came from the US, and 5 of the founders flew to the States to deliver on it. After weeks of work, they flew back to India with the finished code saved on a floppy disk. But when they tried to load it up, it was unreadable. Fungus had grown on the floppy disk during the flight. Back then, India's economy was closed and protectionist. You couldn't just buy a computer. You needed a license, foreign exchange clearance, and months of paperwork. Even importing software was almost impossible. Phone lines were unreliable, internet didn't exist, and getting a computer could take years. But the Infosys team didn't stop. They worked with what they had, hand-delivering software, hacking together code in local languages, and finding clients who believed in their ability. They pioneered a simple but powerful model: do the work in India, deliver it to clients abroad, cheaper, faster, and with elite engineering talent. This was the beginning of India's offshoring revolution. In 1991, everything changed. India opened its economy under Prime Minister Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh. Foreign investments flowed in. The rupee was devalued. Trade restrictions were relaxed. This opened the floodgates for India's tech industry. And Infosys was ready. They expanded to the US, opened development centers in Bangalore and beyond, and won major contracts from Western banks and telecom companies. By the mid-90s, Infosys became the first Indian company to list on the NASDAQ, a historic moment that signaled India's arrival in the global tech scene. So how did a company from the 1980s India with no infrastructure and no global reputation win the trust of Fortune 500 companies? It came down to 4 key decisions that shaped the way global IT services are run today. First, they introduced something called the global delivery model. Instead of keeping all the work in one place, Infosys split projects across teams in different time zones. When the US signed off at the end of the day, India picked up the baton. Work continued around the clock, and clients woke up to progress in their inbox. Second, they focused relentlessly on talent development. In Mysore, Infosys built one of the world's largest corporate training centers. It could train over 10,000 engineers at once, not just in technical skills, but in things like code quality, communication, and delivery standards. Third, they prioritized governance and transparency. At a time when Indian businesses were often seen as opaque, Infosys committed to clean books, regular financial reporting, and zero tolerance for corruption. They set the benchmark for corporate governance in India, and global clients noticed. And finally, they introduced employee stock options. Infosys gave shares to its employees. Thousands of engineers became part owners in the company. It turned middle-class programmers into millionaires and created one of the most loyal, high-performing workforces in the industry. Together, these moves didn't just build a company. They built credibility, the kind that made US banks, global insurers, and telecom giants trust a team 8,000 miles away to run their most critical systems. But Infosys wasn't the only player in the game. Right from the start, there was a much bigger player in the room, TCS, or Tata Consultancy Services. TCS had been around since the late 1960s. It was part of the Tata Group, one of the most powerful and respected business empires in India. So while Infosys was scraping together $250 and trying to import a single computer, TCS already had contracts, infrastructure, and the Tata brand behind it. TCS had a head start. It had government contracts. It had the relationships. Infosys had none of that. What it had was focus, speed, and to prove itself with every single client. And that's exactly what Infosys did. They were the first Indian company to list on the NASDAQ. They leaned hard into transparency, clean accounting, and customer trust. At a time when most people didn't associate India with world-class tech delivery, meanwhile, TCS played a different game. It was slower, bigger, more conservative. It took on massive clients, built huge teams, and quietly became the tech backbone for some of the biggest corporations in the world. Over time, both companies became giants, just in very different ways. Infosys was the innovator that helped shape how global outsourcing worked. TCS was the executor, scaling that model to serve every corner of the world. And even now, decades later, that quiet rivalry is still going. Same industry, different DNA. Lately, Infosys has had to shift gears. For years, their whole model was about sending work offshore, teams of engineers in India doing high-quality, lower-cost work for global clients. But now, clients want things even faster and cheaper. And thanks to automation and AI, a lot of that work doesn't even need people anymore. So Infosys had to adapt. They started investing big in generative AI, teaming up with companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft to build smarter tools. They rolled out internal AI systems to make their services more efficient, stuff like code generation, workflow automation, and predictive analytics. They also launched something called Infosys Topaz, which basically combines automation, data, and human expertise into one offering. On top of that, they've been moving more into consulting. So now they're not just writing code, they're advising companies on how to restructure their entire digital strategy. That puts them up against the big guys like Accenture, IBM, and Capgemini. And here's the crazy part. While a lot of other tech companies slowed down after the pandemic, Infosys kept hiring. They kept growing. They kept winning contracts. So even with all the disruption, they've stayed in the game, and they're evolving to play it on their own terms. In a world where talent is everywhere but opportunity isn't, Infosys proved it's possible to build a global business from the margins. It didn't raise billions. It didn't chase hype. It focused on delivery, trust, and staying relevant, decade after decade. And it turned India into the world's go-to hub for technology and services, owning over half the global outsourcing market. While AI and automation are now reshaping everything again, Infosys isn't just trying to catch up, it's helping define what comes next. Because the companies that shape the future aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones that have been building it quietly all along.